Camping outdoors became a lifelong habit for me, starting at a very young age. My father used to take us camping frequently, and I developed a deep appreciation for it, growing up to share his enthusiasm. I have countless cherished memories of camping in various locations around my country, but one particular encounter remains etched in my mind, an experience I doubt I'll ever forget. As I settled into my warm, cozy sleeping bag inside the tent, having hunted and cooked my meal, an unfamiliar voice reached my ears. It was like an angelic melody, humming a soothing song that made me feel emotions I had never experienced before. The sound enveloped me in warmth, and my curiosity couldn't resist seeking out its origin. Armed with a flashlight, I navigated through the thick bushes, relying on my ears to guide me. The voice grew louder, leading me to a beautiful lake that I knew well. On the lake's shores stood a gorgeous woman in a long white robe, adorned with a heart necklace. She sang with the grace of an orchestra singer, her eyes meeting mine with a warm smile. I couldn't resist approaching her, eager to inquire about who she was and why she was there all alone. As I neared her, the woman suddenly seized me, rendering me immobile with surprising strength. It became evident that she was no ordinary woman. Suddenly, her angelic voice twisted into a grotesque whining, and her face transformed into a visage of decay, crying blood instead of tears. Gripping me tightly, she leapt into the lake. Immobile and slowly drowning, I surveyed my surroundings helplessly. Fortunately, the lake wasn't too deep, and we quickly reached the bottom. There, I discovered a human skeleton, wrapped in the same white robe and wearing the identical necklace as the woman I had encountered earlier. Upon seeing this, control returned to me, and I understood the message she intended to convey. With the last bit of breath in me, I swam to the surface and hastily left the area. Reporting the skeleton to the authorities, I refrained from disclosing the details of my eerie encounter, fearing they would question my sanity. A team of swimmers was immediately sent to the lake. They quickly retrieved the remains of the unfortunate woman, sparking an investigation. However, little was uncovered beyond the fact that her bones dated back over 90 years, and her case was closed, as they had no information about who she possibly was. She was eventually laid to rest in a nearby cemetery, and to this day, as I pass by the area, I still hear that melody. Is it merely etched in my mind, or does she continue to sing it from beyond the grave? I've always been an adventurous individual, cherishing the exploration of new places and camping under the open sky. Fortunately, I was blessed with a group of friends who shared my enthusiasm. As we all transitioned into adulthood, it became increasingly challenging to plan such trips due to family and responsibilities. However, we set aside a special day for ourselves, every 1st of October. We vowed that regardless of what happened, no one would take that day away from us. Anticipation built each year as we eagerly awaited the chosen location for our 1-week camping trip. This year, we decided on a breathtaking forest about 8 hours away from our homes. The locale boasted a stunning lake, diverse plant life, and various species of wild animals, including reports of endangered species sightings that have heightened our excitement. The day finally arrived, and we embarked on our journey in our trusty Toyota 4Runner, taking turns behind the wheel. After a lengthy drive, we reached our destination late at night, almost midnight. With little time to spare, we swiftly set up our shelter as freezing to death outside wasn't on our to-do list for that night. Exhausted from the arduous journey, we skipped dinner and all drowned into a deep slumber. In the middle of the night, I awoke to unfamiliar sounds. animalistic growls and faint footsteps that seemed to be walking around the camp. Peering out of my tent, the faint dawn light revealed a shadowy figure near my shelter. I could hear the creature sniffing around, and though I hesitated to make a sound, I cautiously reached for my Magnum revolver in case of danger. Moments later, the intruder hurriedly retreated. Exiting the tent, I discovered our food scattered all around the camp, however, seemingly untouched. Determined to identify the animal that did all that, we set up a camera near our food storage the next night. Gathering in one tent, we anxiously watched the footage through the camera's phone application. The sight was nothing short of terrifying. A mysterious figure emerging from the darkness, initially unidentifiable. As it approached our trap, the creature's features became clearer. To our horror, it resembled a human being. A man in his 30s with unnaturally long limbs that mimicked the movements of a cellar spider. His head twitched eerily, as if his neck was devoid of any bones. The creature pressed his face against the camera, his eyeballs almost coming out of his skull, growling menacingly. It appeared as if the creature was trying to mumble something. Struggling to decipher the words, it seemed like he was repeatedly saying, "Help me, help me." We trembled in fear, trying not to make any noise, and suddenly, Jin, one of my friends, burst out of the tent, completely consumed and controlled by his fear. Jin fired his handgun at the creature. One bullet struck the creature on the forearm, eliciting a piercing scream of agony. The scream was so loud, I felt it almost pierced my eardrums. Wounded, the creature immediately retreated into the dark bushes from where it emerged. Was this creature a genetically modified being, or something even more sinister? I believe we will never have the answer to this. It had been an eternity since I'd last taken a proper vacation. Working at a software engineering firm for the past 3 years on a major project had left me and my colleagues drained. We pushed ourselves to the limit, even sacrificing weekends to meet our customers' deadlines. Despite the intense stress of the past 3 years, our hard work finally paid off. What I needed the most at that point was a vacation, something long, peaceful, and away from the daily grind. Thankfully, I didn't have to plan anything myself. Our human resources took charge and organized a trip for the entire team. The destination, one of Brazil's lesser-known islands, possibly called Maraca. The plan was simple: camp there for a week, and then head back home. The anticipation for this getaway had me counting down the days. The day finally arrived, and as scheduled, we boarded a plane to the island. While I can't recall many details of the journey, I do remember spending most of it sleeping. Once we landed, we booked a night at an Airbnb. The exhaustion was too much for an immediate camping adventure. The next day, our adventure began early, with 2 local tour guides ensuring our safety. They drove us in their trusty, albeit old, Jeep to the heart of the island where we planned to camp in the lush forest. The day was filled with swimming, hunting, and fishing, pure bliss in what felt like heaven on earth. We even built our own shelter, anticipating rain as advised by our guides. As night fell, the rain came down hard. Huddled under our makeshift shelter, we cooked the day's catch over a small fire. Suddenly, the jungle around us echoed with the growing voices of chimps. Initially dismissing it as normal jungle sounds, I grew uneasy as I observed the fear in our guides' faces. When I asked if everything was okay, they exchanged terrified glances, conversing rapidly in a language I didn't understand. I would assume it was Portuguese. Without a word, the guide stood up, instructing us to stay around the camp and never leave it. "We will come back. We have something to deal with." They left the shelter despite the pouring rain, disappearing into the thick vegetation. Hours passed with no sign of their return. Unease settled in, but we had nothing to do but have some sleep and pray that they would be back when we woke up. But that wasn't the case. Actually, things got worse as we realized that 2 members of our group were missing when we woke up, Jeff and Amelia. Determined to find them, we ventured into the jungle despite the risk. It was either that or leaving our friends to starve to death. As we went deeper inside the jungle, distant echoes of chimp-like voices were getting louder, and we finally found out the source of those voices. It was far from the expected. A tribe of people, not chimps, surrounded one of our guides, skinning him alive as he screamed in agony, almost piercing my eardrum. The sight of the tribe members was enough to make someone tremble. They were all massive, their bodies almost entirely naked, as they painted their skin with blood. Panic set in as we tried to retreat, but the tribe noticed us and immediately started chasing us down, shooting at us using their bows and arrows. Running for our lives, we split up, evading the tribe members' arrows. Suddenly, I felt a searing pain as an arrow pierced my leg, but fear kept me silent. Eventually, finding refuge and losing the tribe members, I tended to my wound and realized the gravity of our situation. My body was in bad shape, bleeding profusely. If I didn't tend to it immediately, death was imminent. Breaking the arrow but leaving it lodged in my leg, I hastily wrapped a piece of cloth around the wound and crawled for my life. The escape was agonizing, and just when I thought I might make it, a cold hand gripped my foot. Terrified, I looked down to find Jeff, one of the lost members from that morning, lying on the ground. An arrow had pierced his neck, and he was slowly and painfully dying. His desperate eyes pleaded for water, and it broke my heart. I couldn't provide any assistance as the sounds of approaching footsteps echoed around us. I made a split-second decision to hide behind a tree, leaving Jeff behind. The tribe members emerged from the bushes, closing in on him. I witnessed the gruesome sight of them cutting pieces of his flesh and devouring it raw. The realization that this could be my fate if captured haunted me. But fortunately, they left without discovering me. For days, I crawled in the wilderness, surviving on insects, dead animals, and any water I could find. My infected wound threatened my life, and as I rested by a tree, I reflected on the family, friends, and dreams I left behind. It felt tragic to face death in such a manner, and in that moment, I surrendered. Closing my eyes, I waited for death to claim me, and everything blacked out. Days later, I awoke in a hospital in Brazil, far from the island. Other tourists had found and reported me, leading to my evacuation and medical care. Unfortunately, there was no trace of the other members of my group, but I have a pretty solid idea of what happened to them.